Well, as we mark World Cities Day, a new report paints a dim picture of South African cities.
The 2018 State of the Cities report by the South African Cities Network reveals the extent of the inequality in our urban areas.
Well, it shows that poorer households are paying proportionately more of their income on municipal bills.
And that this country's metros have an ever-increasing funding gap. Now, joining us to discuss all of this is the CEO himself of the South African Cities Network, Sithole Mbanga. Sithole, good morning. Thank you very much for coming in. Yeah, there's been a conference that's been going on around this issue. I understand the Deputy Minister of Local Government, Andrew Snell, will be talking about this to the media later on.
Correct. And
you've been pretty much involved in that. Are you satisfied with the outcomes?
So the outcome we will know sometime today by midday. But the essence of it is that, and I think as we've been saying, South Africa is urbanizing. I mean, the statistics and indicators tell us that surely by the year 2050, 80% of South Africans will be living in a space that is urban in one way or the other. And urban is not necessarily automatically associated with metropolitan municipalities only. There are rural areas that are urbanizing, and by that we mean the levels of densification, proximity, and the natural pressure that is put on the infrastructure of those municipalities, roads, electricity, and all of that.
80% by 2050. Where are we sitting at the moment? What percentage of our population?
We're looking at about 65% of our population lives in urban areas at the moment.
And that puts a lot of pressure on infrastructure, on all kinds of needs that people who are in urban areas would require for their daily living.
Precisely, and the realization on the part of the public sector at least, which is why the Ministry of Cooperative Governance is taking the lead, is that our response to urbanization cannot only be by government alone. Hence, the conference is talking about what is an all-of-society approach to responding to the phenomena of urbanization. Note, our urbanization is not driven by industrialization and jobs. It's actually driven by poverty, which is predominantly located in urban areas. So people in urban areas are moving out of, people in rural areas are moving out of urban areas looking for a better life elsewhere, and the perception is that urban areas have a better life. But unfortunately, and as statistics South Africa was presenting yesterday, there is actually jobless growth. So there's pressure all around, yeah.
So when you say that it's not just government and it's not just city management that actually needs to solve this problem, then who needs to be doing what? How do we all play our part?
So if we adopt the attitude that a city is an asset of a country, that's the first thing. And if it is a national asset, then it can't be that city administration is the forte only of elected and unelected officials of the municipality. So cities belong to the private sector, they belong to the public sector. Civil society has an immense role to play. But I think as we see phenomenally, disruptors and innovators and industrialists have also a role to play. So what is the all-of-society approach? And I think that's the essence of it. What should we, all of us, be doing in order to make sure that our urbanization becomes sustainable? Because at the moment, it's quite unsustainable. Our planning methodologies are out of date. They're not responding to the changing formation of the average household. The apartheid spatial format that we have inherited itself is not helping us. Long distances of travel. You have people that travel for 4 hours a day to and from work, you know, and they spend less time at home and more time traveling and more money, 70% on average of their money on transportation.
And that's not even taking into account just what's happening with the sort of bad running of our cities. I mean, we're looking at maladministration, we're looking at corruption. If you even get those things right, where do you actually start to clean up?
I think if you get the administration right, you then begin to have money to sort out some of the infrastructural problems. For instance, we need to densify more and much more better so that people spend less time traveling, as a matter of example. That means we can ill afford to continue putting human settlements on the periphery of the city, you know. So we have to find strategic pieces of land within the city and densify more.
Yeah, does it also mean that those economic activities that give people employment should be brought closer to them? Like you mentioned cities. When you say city, we still think about the old CBDs and stuff like that. But that's already overcrowded.
Correct.
You should be creating other nuclear around that to attract people to.
Surely. And jobs and job creation are created in different ways these days. I mean, technology is a factor that we cannot run away from. Technology has disrupted how jobs and job creation. Someone was giving us the statistics that there are no less than 2 million job-seeking people just on generally in the world, and most of them are freelancing. So there's a new industry called freelancing. We're talking about people that are working from home. Do you still need that big infrastructure? Certainly not.
As an emerging economist, Tole, where can we learn from? I mean, there are other emerging economies or developing countries, whatever term you use, that are also battling more or less with what we are faced with.
Yeah. So certainly from across the world, both developed and developing world, there's lots to learn from. What is important, though, is that from those lessons we have to develop our own unique ways of responding to that, because as a country we are quite different to other countries as well. Yeah. So, but the lessons come from just all over.
Okay, before I let you go, Stoel, are you confident that from the outcomes we'll hear about at midday today will really start to begin to ensure that those solutions that have been defined can be implemented?
Yeah, so that's the big thing. So firstly, Minister Mkhize announced yesterday that actually the conference is a precursor to a summit that he will announce at a later stage. And the summit is important because then you're talking about the heads of sectors agreeing jointly. So that's part and parcel of implementation. And again, certainly implementation is going to have to change. I mean, it's the one Achilles heel of implementing our policy. I'm certain there will be.
Okay, will it make us a world-class city? Let's see.
Yeah, there's so much work to be done.
So much work to be done.
Pressure is building up in our cities.
Thanks very much. South African Cities Network